In this video, I'm going to show you how you can set up your model railroad, kind of like this one here, how to run off of your DCC system or your DC power pack. I'm Pete, these are the trains, you're the viewer, and welcome to Pete's Pretty Good Trains. Let's get going. Okay, kind of a spoiler alert here. I already have the layout wired up for this, but this panel is kind of a hot mess, so I want to redo this and make it look a little bit neater. So the current panel here was supposed to just be a temporary one. This, in a former life, was a turntable controller from a company called Allied Hobbies. So I found this in the junk pile here and just kind of rigged it up a little bit to be my little control panel. So I drew up this diagram here in Microsoft Excel. Yes, I use Excel for graphics. Don't judge. And we have switch number 1 over here. What this one is going to do is select between the DC power pack and the DCC system as to what is going to feed the layout. That one's pretty simple. It's a double pull, double throw switch. I'm using switch number 2 to select whether the output from the DCC system is going to be going to the layout, which would then feed to switch number 1, or if it's going to the programming track. So this system does not have a separate set of terminals for a programming track. So to do this, we need some kind of a switch. There is also an auto switch you can get from NCE that will detect the programming signal and automatically switch the signal from the layout to the programming track. The purpose of the programming track is so that when you're programming a locomotive, you don't program every locomotive on your layout to have the same parameters as the one that you're trying to program. So with certain programming settings, it's better to have a separate programming track that can isolate from the rest of the railroad so you can program a locomotive without making a bunch of clones. Getting started with construction here, the first step was clearing all the stuff off of the layout because I knew when I started drilling and using the oscillating tool on there, I did figure out the name for it, that stuff was going to go flying everywhere. So I plucked off all the buildings, cars, tracks. Then I marked out an outline of where I wanted it to go and used a little drill bit to mark some pilot holes, and then use the drill to start drilling holes. And the eventual idea was I would use the oscillating multi-tool to chop it out. So here I am trying to drill a big hole and the thing keeps flying. Not good, but eventually we got it figured out. As you can see here, I have a whole bunch of the bigger holes drilled. And yep, like that guy is saying, make sure you wear your safety goggles because you cannot hear your trains. Well, you can hear trains, but it's easier to see them. So I took the oscillating multi-tool with the bigger head and started going to town trying to chop out the parts in between the holes I made with the drill. So as you can see, this kind of went okay. It works in the end. You'll see here in a little bit. But yep, hit it from a few different angles. And one interesting thing I found after doing all that is that some of the loose ballast I had on the layout had formed itself into some interesting patterns. So I might be able to use this later on when doing more ballasting projects, to use this as the tamper to get the ballast down into the ties before putting the glue in place. So we'll sit back and watch some more of the multi-tool at work here. So here I got the panel fit into place here after I was done with cutting out the hole. Then it was time to do a little bit of cleanup, so I got out the vacuum cleaner and started cleaning up all the sawdust because this thing threw a lot of dust everywhere. I have to cut off the appropriate length, run it to the switch here, and then actually cut some gaps in my track so it's isolated. And then last but not least, this little dude's on the second switch there. He's actually my jumper that's going from here. He's our DCC layout. He's DCC layout, and he's going to go to the other terminal of the first switch. So I will get these wired up, and then once that's done, I'll show you what that looks like when it's kind of flopping out of the out of the hole here. So yeah, that's really gory. Okay, so going handheld here, different mic. You can see this is my switch number 1 here. So we have our wire coming in, we're going out to the track, and that's going to the center terminal. We have our wire coming down from the power pack. Behind you can see the wire from the DCC switch. And over here on the DCC switch, going into the center, we have our wire coming from the control panel, our wire going to the programming track, and our wire that's our little jumper over to the layout selector. So let's see if this works. Okay, so now time for the big test here. I got it wired up. I don't have it screwed into place yet here, but we'll see. Right now I have it set to DC, so if this all works, I'm gonna give throttle number 2 on the power pack a little power here, and we should see the engine move. Beautiful. Okay, let's try that again. So now with this engine here, it doesn't have a decoder. So when I switch this over to, so this engine doesn't have a decoder. When I switch it over to DCC, we should hear a buzz. I do have the DCC system powered on. So let's give it a whirl. And we can hear that buzz. Don't want to hear that for too long because that will burn the motor out. Well, hey, thanks for sticking around and watching the whole video here. So as you can see, got the panel screwed into place there. Of course, it is just a little bit wonky. That is life. At some point, I'll take that out and re-drill it, but add that onto the massive punch list of little projects and fixes and tweaks here on the railroad. And yeah, it was pretty easy to get that wired up and get the railroad running on either DC or DCC. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one.